Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you are new here. My name is Allie and welcome to the top comment. Here I read and react to some crazy internet chaos in the form of Reddit stories. So if you like this type of content, please don't forget to subscribe. It is totally free and it means a whole lot to me. Alright, so today's episode we are going to be exploring the subreddit Glitch in the Matrix. And if you haven't heard of the subreddit, it's kind of like where people go to tell their stories of anything paranormal or just anything out of the ordinary, anything unusual that happens that maybe might be kind of unexplained. So I have some really great stories for you guys today. Let's get into it. All right, so the title of this first story is A Town That Doesn't Exist. I live in very rural southern Appalachia, and yesterday I was going over to the county next to me to look at a lawnmower. It's an area that I'm very familiar with, although I haven't been to the area in over a year. While on the way, I came upon a town that has never been there before. Now, there is a small community there, and it was by the same name, but this was a full-fledged small town. Had a couple of red lights, a main street with probably 15 to 20 storefronts, everything. I was so taken aback, I stopped in the middle of the road. After a few moments, a car behind me honked, and so I pulled into a parallel spot and got out. Now, the small towns in my area are all the same. Tiny, dingy, and run down. Had a heyday in the 50s and 60s, but have all fallen into despair since. Not this one. Everything was pristine and new looking. Swept sidewalks, shiny windows, and clean bricks. The people I saw were dressed in modern clothes and had the same appearance that most of the people in the area have. Healthy, but weather beaten and aged beyond their years. The vehicles I saw were fairly modern, new to 20 years old, nothing out of the ordinary. I walked into the little restaurant called Cream of the Crop Cafe, and it looked like every other little restaurant in the area. Booths and tables, a bar top with a register, and a kitchen behind it. Some cheesy James Dean and Marilyn Monroe pictures on the walls. I walked up to the girl at the counter and I asked her where I was. I said, "So this is Minneapolis? When did they build all this?" Again, she looked puzzled and said, "I don't know, the 1800s sometime?" I couldn't handle it anymore, so I just left, got in my truck, and went on to look at the lawnmower. On my way back through, about an hour later, there was Minneapolis like it should be. A couple houses and an old general store. No town, no red lights, no cafe, no sidewalks, no nothing. Freaked me out something awful. I've never experienced anything like this, and I'm pretty mundane and boring, and it wasn't a hallucination, I don't think. Everything else was the same. It wasn't a dream, so I don't know. So what you're telling us is you just casually pulled into an off-brand version of the Minneapolis that you know, and everybody's just acting completely normal? Sir, you didn't go to the next county. I think you might have gone through a portal, or maybe you timeline shifted, because that is crazy. I spent the last almost 7 years of my life living in the middle of nowhere, Colorado. Like, I literally lived in Crestone. If you know, you know. And if you do know and you want me to drop a whole story on my experience there, leave me a comment, because I could tell you stuff that would absolutely make your head spin. I think if that had happened to me, I would have gotten in my truck, I would have saged, I would have turned around, and I would have just gone home. I would have not even gone to look at the lawnmower. I probably just would have bailed, because that is crazy. That's totally weird. The one thing I do know about like small towns and locals is that they know everything everywhere. It is truly a community of people who they all talk, they all communicate through. In my experience, Facebook was the big thing out here in, rural bumfuck nowhere, Colorado. The locals do definitely know, and like just living in a small town too, I'm very directionally challenged, but I definitely got to know the roads because there's not very many of them that go through there. So you kind of have to know your way around almost. This is pretty creepy, so I am curious to see what the comments say. So the top comment on this one says, "While I don't live in North Carolina anymore, I have spent a lot of time in western North Carolina mountains exploring. I have actually driven through Minneapolis when driving to Boone. I remember joking with my husband about the name and the fact that there are only a few houses. I mention this because anyone who has driven these roads knows there is zero chance that OP confused it for a different town. It really is spread out there, and the locals know every road and town nearby." This is a good one. I would be curious to see if there were any plans plans way back when to turn it into a real town or not. OP responds to this and says, I'm glad someone on here understands the scope of the situation. I know every single road in town in the area, as does every local. You have to if you ever want to get anywhere you're going. Yeah, I completely agree with that. Being in a small town and getting to know a lot of the locals, they do know every nook and cranny of that entire town. And I would find it hard to believe that OP wouldn't have known or would have just gone on some random road. When you're out in the mountains, a lot of these roads are like the same. Colorado 17 runs straight through the San Luis Valley out here, and it is one road. It's like 2 lanes. Occasionally you'll get like a turning lane if there's like a big farm or like the hot springs on the side, but otherwise it's 100 miles of one single road. And so there's nowhere to just turn off. And if a town were to just appear out there, that would really freak me out because I am very familiar with that area and it's the same type of small town vibe. And I just think that that's crazy. That's such a weird experience to have. Let's keep reading these comments and see if there's any more clarification. The next one says, how bizarre, but I would chalk this up to you stepping into some alternate timeline. There you go. Perhaps that area was supposed to be developed, but for whatever reason, in your own timeline, those plans were never put into fruition, but in another timeline, it was fully developed. That's amazing though. Best to not overthink it and accept there is more you do not know than you do know. We have yet to truly uncover the nature of the universe and the sheer nature of existence. I think for me, I don't believe that we're alone in this universe. I do believe in alternate timelines. I believe that energy is recyclable and it can be placed in different places at different times. For me, I think I would rather not know everything about the universe than to know it. I feel like if I knew every last little detail of what goes on, I think I would probably be pretty scared. I think that there are some things that we just don't need to know. The next comment on this one says, I believe you. I've lived in the same area of my state almost my entire life and I know every single city, town, back roads, highways, all of it. I know where everything is, so if I ever noticed something different, I would know I didn't hallucinate it. Would you consider driving through again at the same time on the same day of the week and maybe prop your phone up to the dash to record? Yeah, you could try and maybe trip the timeline by like wearing the exact same thing, doing your hair the exact same way, eating the exact same breakfast. But I think maybe if you tried to recreate that exact same scenario, maybe you might find out some answers. The next comment on this says, this happened to me and my partner 13 years ago. The only difference was that the place we drove into was an old-fashioned town, like we had gone back in time. I actually posted it on this sub on an old account. We were getting coffee early in the morning and we suddenly found ourselves on a street we weren't familiar with, which just simply wasn't possible as we were only about a mile away from where we lived at the time and we both knew all of the surrounding streets and the areas like the back of our hands. The street was so charming and cheery that it came across as uncanny. There was a row of impossibly perfect houses on a hill with a long flat top. Each house had a bright door differing in color to the next, and fastened on the wall on either side of every door were beautiful hanging baskets filled with such gorgeous floral displays that they didn't even look real. A white horse and its fowl came onto the street. They played together seemingly in slow motion. Yeah, cheesy, I know. And despite cars going to and fro, nobody was acknowledging these two incredible animals. Everyone was just going about their day. Suddenly, the world's happiest milkman appeared like he was wearing the old style white coat and cap I hadn't seen since I was a kid, and he was beaming with a smile the entire time my eyes were on him. Me and my partner thought he was going to acknowledge the horses, but he didn't, despite them literally running all around him and past him back and forth. It didn't really add up as he didn't flinch once, even though these two horses had just gotten quite close to him several times. He just kept smiling. The sun was drenching this whole scene in oversaturated golden hour light, and me and my partner actually questioned if we had crashed the car and died. The way I'm describing it just isn't doing it justice. We never noticed whether the cars that were going by were old or modern, even though we were both looking in car windows to see if anyone else was acknowledging the horses, which, as I said, they weren't. And then after what seemed like quite a few minutes, we pulled off the street and went home. We have tried to find the street many times since. It doesn't exist. Wow, that's wild. To this very day, we have not one idea of what happened that morning. It sounds to me like you stepped into a coloring book page of a Lisa Frank book. It's very much giving that whole like 90s rainbow vibe aesthetic. I think you did a great job painting a picture of what this is like. I have the perfect mental image. But that's really weird and really unexplainable. As I was scrolling through the comments of this, I saw that OP he actually came back and updated this story a year later. So I have not read the update. I am going to read the update. I didn't know it existed until now. So this is a live reaction here with you guys. We're all going to be hearing this together, unless of course you've heard it before, but whatever. And it says, I posted about a town that doesn't exist over a year ago. I have an update. First off, let me preface by saying I've been through Minneapolis several times since the occurrence, and it is still the same. Nothing has been out of the ordinary. Now on to the update. I was in Walmart today and I ran into the young lady who I spoke to at the non-existent restaurant in the non-existent town. I passed her in an aisle and we locked eyes. She had a vague recognition while I simply froze. She continued on her way, but once I snapped out of my daze, I made it a point to be in almost every aisle she went down. It sounds kind of creepy and stalkerish, I know. Yeah, I don't support following women down grocery store aisles, but we'll let it slide this time for the sake of the story. Finally, after locking eyes with her for the third time, she asked, "Where do I know you from?" I told her I didn't know, but she looked familiar too and asked if we went to school together. She informed me that she went to the neighboring high school, graduated 5 years after me, and grew up in Minneapolis. We didn't have any mutual friends, didn't ever attend the same barn parties, nor did we know each other's spouses. She pressed on, saying something along the lines of, "You are just so familiar, and I now feel like we've met before." I couldn't hold it back, and I blurted out the entire story. Everything from Minneapolis being a full-fledged town to the restaurant to her working the counter and the bewilderment at my question. She gave an awkward laugh and said, "No, that's not it," and hurried away. I think I freaked her out. She knew there was some connection, but didn't know what it was. Just a little while ago, she added me as a friend on Facebook, but hasn't tried to contact me. I'm not going to press the issue, but if she comes up asking questions, I guess I'll answer them. That is some freaky shit, my guy. That is terrifying. Not him just casually bumping into that waitress all this time later. I mean, that's nuts. I wonder if there were any like similarities on the day. And how do you even react to that? Do you just be like, "Hey, nice to see you again. We met in a ghost town in a timeline that doesn't exist. My name is Paul. What's your name?" And then for her to go and add him on Facebook too, that's nuts. I mean, that's very like quintessential small town. When I moved to Colorado, I did not have Facebook. And then when I moved to the small town, I realized that everybody communicates on Facebook. And if I want firewood to keep my house warm during the winter, I have to have Facebook. So I went and I re-downloaded the app, and I don't use it much today. It's kind of like trash social media in my opinion. Don't come for me, Mark Zuckerberg. Okay, there is actually an edit on here from OP. I was about ready to say let's get into these comments, but we need to read this edit. My eyes just scrolled past it and I literally have goosebumps right now. So it says edit. After scrolling through my pictures, I found one I took on the day of the incident. No, unfortunately not of the town, but I realized I had on the exact same clothes yesterday as I did when the incident happened. I had on overalls, likely not the same pair, but it's what I wear on my day off. The same old ball cap, again, my normal day off around the house attire, and the same orange Carolina push rods t-shirt. So he was wearing the exact same thing. So maybe he triggered something in that timeline for her to be there at the exact same time as him. We don't know how all this works. I mean, this is crazy. I don't really know if this has any meaning as I wear these clothes fairly regularly. Fair, but it's odd that I had on the same t-shirt during both encounters. That is very strange, very bizarre. Either his entire closet is cursed or the simulation's copy and paste function is broken. I'm really, really glad we got an update from OP. This isn't what I was expecting for the update, but here we are. All right, so the top comment from the second story says, "The Ruby Tuesday story has been my Roman Empire for the better part of a decade now. It will never leave my brain. It's the glitch in the Matrix story I need an explanation for most out of the literally thousands I've read." What is the Ruby Tuesday story? Do we need to look into this? I think we need to look into this. This is getting really weird. I don't know what the Ruby Tuesday story is. Comment below if you've heard it before, and if not, I will be right back. We're gonna stand by and I'm gonna go look for it. Okay, I'm back. I just read the Ruby Tuesday story. It's so long, so I'm gonna give you guys a TLDR, okay? But it is crazy, okay? Slight backstory. I obviously lived in the middle of nowhere, Colorado for the last 7 years, but it was also on the border of New Mexico. I lived right down there. I actually used to sell alternative medicine, you know, the green smokable kind that's legal in Colorado and New Mexico. I used to do traveling sales for this company, and I ended up quitting because it was like a major major safety issue for me to transport hundreds of pounds of product in the back of my own vehicle through some of these places. But I'm very well traveled in New Mexico, and so this is insane. In 2009, two brothers from Portland, Oregon embarked on a road trip to Port St. Lucie, Florida. On their return journey, they experienced an unusual drop in their car's fuel efficiency, promoting an unexpected stop in Fort Stockton, Texas. Following their GPS, they veered off of their planned route onto Highway 285, entering New Mexico earlier than anticipated. Feeling hungry, and after several hours, they stumbled upon an unlisted town featuring various establishments, including a Ruby Tuesdays restaurant. Upon entering, staff members greeted them warmly, mistaking them for former employees with striking resemblances and even identical names. Despite clarifying the confusion, the atmosphere grew increasingly awkward, culminating in the manager's abrupt avoidance and the staff comping their meal due to a frozen cash register. After leaving, they attempted to refuel but were redirected back onto the highway. Later research revealed no record of the town's existence between Encino and the I-40 intersection, leaving the brothers puzzled by their eerie experience. I know right where all of that is. There is no Ruby Tuesday out there. You're lucky to even find a gas station in some of these parts. This is just a pro tip for anybody that might be road tripping this summer. Fill up on gas before you go through the small towns. Okay, fill up on gas, especially if you're coming out west. It is few and far between. I mean, you might go, more than 100 miles without seeing a gas station, sometimes even more. So this is really crazy. So just to give you guys reference, Encino, New Mexico has about 50 residents in it. So it is a tiny town. Ruby Tuesdays don't exist in that small of a town. I don't know, alternate timeline hopping, something happening. I'm very curious. Maybe I'll do some more research into the story and I'll give you guys an update or something if I find any more info, but this is all I can find right now. All right, so this next story says, my 5-year-old son broke character and talked to me like an adult. This happened about 2 years ago, and I was so blown away. I took notes and I told my wife about it, so I still have the notes on my phone. My 5-year-old son was a pretty typical boy for his age, always goofing around, never serious, always working some angle to negotiate treats or buying whatever the thing was that he wanted at the top of his list that week. Kids have a selfish worldview, and that's mostly understandable because they haven't matured yet. So when my son asked me to go for a walk with just the two of us, I immediately laughed and thought, okay, what's he going to ask for this time? We start walking, and I ask, what's on your mind, buddy? He said, nothing really. I just want to have some time to be with you and to be peaceful and to be out in nature together. Wow, okay. This is progress, I thought. Then he said, I want you to know you're the best dad I've ever had. You really do help me and my sister a lot, and you're very, very nice, even though we don't usually tell you. So I wanted to say thank you for everything and that I want to be near you always. Aww. By this time, the only reason I wasn't completely crying my eyes out is that I thought it was some kind of joke or lead up to ask for something. This was totally out of character, especially at this age. I managed to croak out something like, I'm really glad to hear that and I love you very much. Then we just enjoyed the rest of our walk together. It literally felt like for a moment I was speaking to a soul who has had several lives. You're the best dad I've ever had, and wanted to speak directly to me instead of playing the role of a child in that moment. I'm so glad it happened, and it's something I will never forget. Later, he went right back to being the same old goofy kid that I love. That's so sweet. I'm the type of person that believes that souls will reincarnate. I think that souls it's basically just a composition of energy, and energy transfers and changes over time. I think that's really sweet that he said that. I personally would probably be a little freaked out if a child talked to me like that out of character. This isn't actually the first story that I've heard about children just completely saying off the wall adult stuff to their parents. This one's actually more on the mild side, but I think that's really sweet, and it's nice that it's a core memory, and I'm so sure you two are gonna have a good old laugh about it one day when he's older, and you can tell him the crazy thing that he said when he was a kid. The top comment on this says, you're my favorite mummy I've ever had, and I'd like for you to be my mummy again next time, were things my toddler said over and over again to me. He was a fountain of past life stories and weird paranormal encounters at that age, or an extremely imaginative kid, depending on how you want to look at it. Not your 5-year-old though, tapping into his past life wisdom. Like he's been reincarnated 17 times and just once. One peaceful walk before rejoining the chaos of current day. Oh my gosh. What a sweetie. What a cute boy. That's really precious. I'm sure that just made you really happy. The next comment says, my son used to say things like, I used to go to school here when you were little, and point at the school in my old neighborhood. Ooh, creepy. The next comment down says, my son was about 3, almost 4, when we were looking at a memorial book of the World Trade Center of 9/11 attacks. And out of nowhere, he starts sobbing and he says, our feet were so hot. It was just making our feet so hot and we jumped. We jumped to the sky. He cried until his body convulsed and then fell asleep, slept for 12 hours. I've never asked him another thing about it and he hasn't offered up any information. He's 6 now. That's crazy. That's really wild. Wow. Kids say the darndest things and you just have to kind of wonder where it came from. There's another comment that says, totally, we come back to the same souls in our soul group, but each time we play different parts to gain more perspective. I love that. I very much believe in soul groups too. I think people that your soul are connected to, I think that you're going to follow them through eternity in different life forms and different ways and shapes until our energy has no more to give and, it fades off into something completely different. I also think the same for animals too. Like maybe it's just because I love my dog so much, but I like to think that they will follow me into the next life. I like to think that I will follow them. I like to think that maybe someday we'll switch roles and I'll get to be the dog and they'll get to be my owners. The last comment on here says, my son loved helicopters when he was 4 years old, still does, and would always say something like, I want to jump out of one again someday. One day I asked him about it and he said he used to jump from helicopters, but it's okay because the balloon thing in my back always opened fine. He then became really sad and said if he had jumped the last time, he wouldn't have died when the helicopter caught fire. Wow. That's wild. A lot of these things that I've read right now, they feel more like memories rather than imagination, but that's just my opinion. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I also want to know, have you ever had a child speak out of character to you? I'm very interested in this and I would love to know. So let me know in the comments. All right. So this last story is a little bit more of a prank rather than a glitch, but still funny nonetheless. It says, I was someone's glitch in the Matrix. I went out, parked in front of a store, bought a 6-pack of water bottles and went to register too, paid with change. Half an hour later, I remembered I wouldn't be going out anytime soon, so I decided to buy more water bottles and eventually everything happened in the exact same order. I parked in the same exact spot, entered, bought a 6-pack of water bottles, went to register too, same girl working there. I even paid with the exact same amount of change and the exact same coins. She looked at me with a bit of horror and confusion, but couldn't see me smiling underneath my mask. That is so funny. I'm sure she went home and told her friends like the weirdest thing happened today. Although I think if I were in her position, I probably would have, poked fun at you and said like, back for more water already? Or like, man, you're really thirsty today or something, just as a funny, lighthearted joke, not to like out people or anything, but something like that is totally harmless. I love how you just hit copy and paste on your entire day and caused this woman so much chaos. I'm sure she thought she had seen a ghost. So anyways, I hope you guys liked today's episode. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe. Like I said, it is totally free and it means so much to me. I really appreciate it. And I will see you guys on Thursday for the next episode, where today we question reality and Thursday we are going to be questioning people's morals. So I'll see you then. Bye.